Hello, everybody. Welcome to our little She Can't Do That, but She Did It Anyway studio. Hello, Donna is our guest today.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for having me.
And Donna probably had a lot of situations in her life where somebody said she can't do that, but she did it anyway. So she fits in very, very well. We do a little bit something new today. We have our guest introduce herself.
My name is Donna Otten,
Uh-huh.
and I gave myself my own title, which is called a practitioner of being. And
Oh, I
what that
love that.
means is that I'm just here to experience life and to be with what is.
That
my
sounds
gosh.
so difficult already.
Yeah, I can't do it already.
Like, I'm already like, okay.
Oh, to me, it's fun. It's an adventure. It's curious.
Yeah.
It's.
Okay, and we want to definitely go and get there where you today.
Yeah. But how? How did you become aware of life and wanting to be here in the now? And
Where did it start?
Yeah,
Where
that
did your life
curiosity.
start?
I think that it's been ongoing. And I was living a life that, from the outside looking in, seemed wonderful. And I noticed I was really struggling.
How old were you when you
This was
thinking back
really
at that?
early 30s.
Okay.
And it's just this idea that it's like, okay, I've done all of the things you're supposed to do and have this life that looks a certain way.
Which were
And
what? Like you went to
like
school, you
I
went
was
to
in a
college, you
healthy
did the
relationship. I was doing a job that I always wanted. I had good friends. I had a great apartment. I lived in Los Angeles and in a neighborhood that was thriving and fun. And I just still was suffering with anxiety, moments of depression. It would never last that long. And exhaustion. And it was really my husband that pointed out to me that I needed to start dealing with some things that I just decided not to. So I think it's been an ongoing process to give myself this title. But it was just, there was this moment that I recognized that I needed to do the change, that living this happy, carefree life of peace was something that I needed to choose. And so it was a process. And I feel like the hardest part is to know where to start.
I just want to say, did you, when you had these feelings, did you go to like therapy or doctors or any kind of people and asked for help?
It took me a while, mostly because of just financial, doing therapy at the time for me. Yeah, it was like, that's a commitment. But I did. I started with therapy. And that was kind of like the first process, I think, of my kind of healing journey, to use that term. And it was a great place to start. And that was kind of the point that I recognized I needed to go a little deeper. And when I was in therapy around that time was when I was diagnosed with PTSD. And very shortly after was also diagnosed with lupus, which were the two big things that kind of pushed me into, where I am now.
Had you done therapy before, or was this your first foray into therapy?
I had done therapy before, but I never really stuck with it because I was lying to my therapist, because I was scared to really get into it. And so I think, for me, I needed to be ready to face things that I just wasn't ready to face.
So a lot of times when you go to a doctor and say you have anxiety and depression, they put you on medication and just say, try to have less stress.
Yeah.
Was that something
So
that happened to you too?
I was never given medication. And I think it was mostly because I just wasn't open to it.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to kind of talk through things, and I feel like I would start to talk about past, and it was just too scary for me at the time, and so I just never really stuck with it. And then in my 30s, I was like, okay, I'm ready and I'm going to do this. So I started going into therapy, and my therapist eventually advised me to do EMDR, which was a big game changer for me.
I want to hear about
Yes.
Yeah.
that.
So
Yeah.
this was huge
Mm-hmm.
for me. And I think what made it so impactful for me is that I did have a mindfulness meditation background. And the reason I'm saying that is because what they ask you to do in this type of therapy also is not easy.
Yeah.
But because I had that background, it helped me, really look at my thoughts and just recognize that that they are just thoughts. So,
What is EMDR?
so it is something
Eye
movement.
movement desensitization reprocessing, EMDR. And it's basically where if you've had, I think it's really particularly helpful if you've had a traumatic event. And the idea is that you reprocess that traumatic event with somebody guiding you through an experience of it. But I think they're doing this, and there's something about the eye motion that stimulates something neurologically in your brain, so that as you're reprocessing this trauma, you're kind of not, you're like re-traumatized by it, but you're reprocessing it in a controlled way. So it's not as traumatic for your body to experience. Am I doing that a good?
Like I couldn't have said it better.
Okay.
And it's
So for everybody who's not watching,
Mhm.
who's just listening, you were just moving your fingers from left to right. So they're
Yes.
moving
And
their finger in
so
front
I'll
of your
tell you
face.
exactly what my experience was, and how
Okay.
you put it was exactly how I experienced it. So I had one traumatic event that I was struggling to move past. And I'm going to talk about this now, but I really started to recognize the attachment I had to the trauma, and the belief of who I was because of it. And later now recognizing that all of that is not true. But one moment, something happens, and a whole life was created. And it was because of what I believed that event meant about me. And so I just attached to that, and I lived my life believing all of these thoughts. And this is a moment in time, surrounded around a very beautiful life, and just this moment that I could not let go of. And so EMDR, I went in, and she's explaining it to you, and you think it's like, this is madness.
Yeah,
I'm
like,
like, what?
woo woo.
Yeah,
Wah,
I'm
wah,
like,
yeah.
so my experience was, and my therapist was amazing. She had me sit down, and she explained to me what we were going to do. And the idea is that you're going to go back to that moment in time and the worst part of it,
Mm-hmm.
And I think talking about it in talk therapy was helpful for me to get there. And also having my meditation background, I feel like that really supported me in that moment. So I sat there with her, and she had this like long silver point stick, like they would use at school to point at a board or something. And imagine just like a little eraser, a little pencil eraser on the tip of it. And she had me sit and bring myself to that moment. And then she put the eraser in front of my eyes, and then she had me follow it. And then she said, stop when the feeling you have gets worse. And I was like, oh God, it's going to get worse. Okay. And so I didn't feel anything when my eyes were following her. So I said, can we do it again? And she said, of course. So we reset. I got back to that space. And then I moved my eyes to a different direction. And it was like, ooh, it was like this gut wrench feeling in my stomach that I could have like just my body, I could have thrown up. I mean, it was just like, I just felt just so awful. And she's like, hold it. And I just held my eyes in that spot. And I remember I was like in that moment of the trauma, and I was trying to see this person's face. And I recognized that I'm like, I saw a character in a movie. Like I couldn't even see this person's face. And then it just kind of hit me like this moment that I don't even really remember is ruining my life, like my beautiful life. And I just started laughing. I was like, what am I doing? And I started laughing. It was just like this huge release. And she's like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah. It just felt amazing. And I was like, it was just this epiphany, you know? And I was like, you know, she's like, okay. And I think we were going to work with another event. And I was like, I don't really want to today. And she's like, great. And she's like, want to try to come back next week? And I was like, absolutely. And we came back to that same moment. It was like all of the weight of it was gone.
All the power
Yeah.
of it was
Yeah.
gone. Yeah.
Yeah. It
You
was
know-
phenomenal. And she was like, okay, maybe we just need one take.
Girl, one and
Yeah.
done.
And it really felt true to me. And I did try to do this work. I think it does matter, the event, you know, like the trauma that I was working with was a one-time event. I think when people, it's a little more challenging for people who've like grown up having a traumatic experience
Or like
that
a
were
traumatic
ongoing.
childhood or
Yes,
something
like an
like that. Yeah,
ongoing
yeah.
thing. I think there's other ways that are really good to work with that type of trauma. I tried to work with an event where I didn't have memory of it and I couldn't work with it, which I think is really interesting. So it kind of has to be the right the right experience.
the right trauma.
It seems with the right type of trauma.
Yeah.
To work with it. But I think that was what I needed to then even dive deeper.
Do you know what
and
the eye
continue
movement has to do with it?
So it was kind of what Taryn was saying is that, and I wish I could get a little bit more, I want to look more into this just scientifically of like where trauma gets trapped in the brain. And so just like she was saying, it changes these neural pathways. And so that you can start to just kind of let go of it and move past it. And that's how it worked for me. I feel like it just loosened its grip and then allowed me to do the work I needed to do. Because in talk therapy, it was like every time I was like retelling the story, I was just like sobbing and my body was trembling and it was stuck in my body. I just had so much fear in my body. And so just constantly talking about it was not the way for me.
That is so interesting because I feel the same thing about talk therapy now, that I'm like, it's great, but it's not enough. It's like this extra thing that needs to happen to like really make a difference.
Well, I think it's hard for people to, first of all, admit to what they want to work through. So even having someone to just be like, okay, I'm going to talk about this. I think that there's something really great about that. And I feel like it does. It's like it can only go so far until you just kind of, it's like, what am I doing here? I feel like I'm just having kind of this circular conversation. It's like, okay, I know that this sucked in my life. Now what? You know? Now what?
And I know it shouldn't like take over my whole life, but it still does.
Yes.
So,
Now what?
Yeah.
I think the difference is if you look at trauma and PTSD and the way that even like bodies of medicine used to talk about PTSD and traumatic events, they referred to it as like almost a problem with logic and the like mental processing, especially like in that book, The Body Keeps the Score, in the beginning of the book, they kind of lay out, it's such a phenomenal book. I mean, everyone should read it, but they lay out the way that we used to talk about traumatic experiences and like how we do now. And like early therapists and doctors would look at people that were in war and veterans, and they thought there was something wrong with their mind. But then they started realizing these men are not just storing trauma in their brain. It's not an issue with logic and reasoning that you can just talk through and logic your way out of. Your body literally stores trauma. And so rewiring those neuro pathways through like rapid eye movement and other desensitization things rewires the way that your brain processes that trauma on a more animalistic level, on levels that are more in our subconscious, whereas we used to talk about trauma with logic, which is like the prefrontal cortex part of your brain, which is developed later. And this is more of an approach of like trauma is stored in your body and you need to deal with it at the stem of your brain, which is the first part of your brain that's developed. And that's where those neural pathways are really coming from. But there's also another great book called Waking the Tiger. And they have a great example. If you look in nature, a cheetah, the illustration in the beginning of the book is a cheetah is chasing a gazelle, and the gazelle is caught in fight or flight, and it is like constantly trying to survive its animalistic nature. And in a flash, the cheetah cannot capture the gazelle and he gets away. But he literally shakes it off and then he goes about his business. And so it's kind of saying we as humans need something on a bodily level to like shake off the trauma, is the illustration basically. And so we have these practices like EMDR.
And I teach shaking meditation.
You do?
Yes.
Oh my God, there we
So
go.
this is a
Yes.
this is a Kundalini practice actually. And it's another way that we can work through just like moving, because it is so much just in our body.
Yes.
And the reason I really started getting into healing too was that I was in a head-on collision car accident when I was 19. And I shattered my tibia, I broke my ribs, I had a traumatic brain injury, and I had amnesia. So I don't remember the accident. I just woke up and I was in a hospital with people that I wasn't quite sure who they were, and they were my family. And
Oh my God,
it
that is
was
so scary.
really wild. And my doctors are like, you're never gonna walk again. I was supposed to have my right leg amputated, but thankfully there was another doctor there that decided to put a rod into my leg. So there was just this whole process of healing from something I didn't remember. But what's so fascinating about the body keeping the score is that when I was a passenger, because I was a passenger in the car accident, and both cars were going 75 miles per hour, and it was a head-on collision.
Oh
And so now when well, not anymore, but when I used to be a passenger and I hadn't worked through this, and the fascinating thing, remember, is I don't remember the accident, okay? I have no memory of like a month of that time. That if I was in a car and we were getting close, like to maybe rear-ending it or something, my body would react. My knee would come up into my chest and I would like instantly go into this place of protection. But the position my body was taking is like the worst idea, okay, to do in a situation. But it's how I imagine my body tried to respond, and it relates with all of my injuries.
Yeah.
That my body was responding from something that I don't remember. And so it's like I already just kind of had all of this fear trapped in my body. And so that was something also that I was like, I need to like, because I would, get into a car and my body would just tense up. And so I've learned all of these practices of how to move this energy and how to also detach. Oh, I don't want to use that word. How to let go of the story and to let go of this idea of fear, And that's kind of been my journey through healing after EMDR.
How did you crack that though? You said it didn't work for this incident with EMDR because it didn't
Because
work for the incident you didn't remember.
yes.
What did you
So,
do
so
for that one?
that, I think I didn't have a strong intention. I don't know if that's true. I feel like I just started trusting my gut. I read The Body Keeps the Score. So that was just a huge pivotal change for me. With the PTSD and lupus diagnosis, I just was like, I need to go into more of like a holistic path. I had gone to a rheumatologist and she did try to give me medication for lupus, and it wasn't working for me. It actually made my symptoms worse. And so I kept going back to the doctor and she's just like, you're so healthy. I don't, it's like they couldn't quite figure me out, but I had all of the markers for lupus. So when I read The Body Keeps the Score, I'm like, I'm just going to keep doing these things. So these things that I really started to focus on was, one, moving my body. I was weak. I had chronic pain. So moving my body looked like I'd sit, and I got one of those little pedal machines on Amazon that just moved my legs. And then eventually I tried to stand up, and then I'd move my body. And then I started like slowly being able to take more exertion and got a little stronger. So that was one, getting my heart rate up. Secondly was changing my diet. I did something called the Whole30, where you're removing any sort of processed foods, any sugars, legumes, things that a lot of people have allergens with. I removed all of that from my diet, but also not about just the removing, but what I was adding, like a lot of vegetables, protein, and just making sure that I was eating the best that I could. And then also meditation. Like meditation was key for me because a lot of my anxiety and depression were just living in these stories of past or future and having no idea on how much like I was giving to that because I just couldn't be in the present moment. And I started doing yoga. And when I started doing all of this stuff, I slowly started to feel better. And then I went into my rheumatologist and she was like taking notes on what I was doing.
Oh,
And she said
that's
to me,
awesome.
this is what we recommend to people, but they don't want to put the work in.
Yeah.
They'd rather just take the pill. And that's just a very fascinating concept to me because this is our health. It's our everything when we don't have it. And, a lot of people go through a period in their life where they're unhealthy. And if you think about that period, it's like nothing else matters. It's like, if I can't get out of bed, what kind of a life am I living? So just adding these little things, it was like 30 minutes of movement. And I did have to leave my job at the time because I couldn't work. So I did have time to like make all of my food from scratch. But there are places like Whole30 that make prepared meals now that don't have sugar, that don't have allergens in them. So it's something that is now more accessible to people because I mean, it was a part-time job making I was making my mayo from scratch. Like everything was from scratch. So that was a big part of my life. And then, 20 minutes of meditation in the morning, 20 minutes of meditation before I go to bed. It was instead of being on my phone, which felt a lot better, you know?
Healthier.
And then something that I continued to do. And those changes were huge. And it really started to bring me into yoga, which was something I was strangely very afraid of for some reason. And I just started running towards the things that were scaring me because I was like, this is just going to be my path if I want to live a life where I'm not constantly anxious and having, extended moments of depression.
It's so hard though, and I sympathize with the people who are not doing it, even they know what they should do. Because I have the same thing when I'm depressed. I know what would help and I still don't do it.
Oh, absolutely.
I know the sun is shining outside. I know, I mean, I live at the beach, so I can just go and do a beach walk, which is sunshine, nature, and movement, 3 in 1, and it's definitely going to help me. I'm not going to do
Oh
it.
yeah, not in the state of
When you're
depression.
No.
in it,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
absolutely not.
Even though you're fully aware what
Yeah.
you could do
Yeah.
to make you feel better, you
Mhm.
choose not to.
Yeah.
Because you
It's
just, I don't even know if you choose or if you just can't.
yeah. Yeah. Oh, I
That's what it
know.
feels
No,
like.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I know that feeling. And it's when you start to come out of it. What are you going to choose? And because then you kind of go back to your regular life and everything's seemingly good and then it comes again. And I'm not going to say that I don't ever get depressed or have anxiety anymore. I just have a completely different relationship to it. You know, it's not like I stop saying in my mind, I am anxious. I'm just like, oh, this is an energy that's moving through me instead of it being this identity. Because I think that's where it starts to really become an issue where it's like, oh, this is part of me and this is my darkness and this is my, it's like, no, this is just a moment. It's just a moment in time. It's just an energetic change. And can you acknowledge it too? And I think that that's kind of the, one of the biggest things is just not pushing it away and allowing yourself to experience it and not be afraid of it because it will pass. It's energy. And notice what's happening in your mind when you're having these feelings. It's all connected, this mind, body, spirit. It is so connected. And I notice that when I do have moments that I, start to feel down, that is usually when I start to, I'll get a cold or something like that, or I push myself too much and I haven't given my time or given myself time to rest. And I think that's something in our society that we just don't. I think it's changing, but it's like we don't allow ourselves the time to just be and to
No,
be
if you're
with.
not productive, you're wasting time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just don't believe that.
Yeah.
I'm like,
that's
I
how I
need to
feel
have
too.
a Saturday morning in bed and give myself that. Those slow mornings have just been hugely beneficial for me. And it's not available for everyone. And I understand that as well. But it's like, where can we add it in? And where can we add just these little things in our lives? And look, sitting on a cushion for 20 minutes might not be your thing. And I've recognized that with clients. And so then I lead them to breath work. You'll be able to find something that's right for you. And if you love working out, that might be your place of peace. Working out, moving your body is so healing. And it's where can we find these things that work for each of us independently, because we're all so different. But I don't want people in the world to just believe that that's how life is supposed to be. I think I got to a place of kind of complacency, is that the word? Where I just was like, oh, we just have, I'm just an anxious person and I get depressed sometimes. And that's not my story now. I'm living a very different life where I feel confident and I feel courageous and I feel bold and I feel at ease and I feel, most of the time, which is, it feels really good to me. And that's my moment now. It's my season now. And that can always change. And that's the thing, is that it's always going to change. And so can you be curious in the moment that you're in and not want it to be something different? Understanding that it can be and it will change, but this is the moment it is right now. This is what's happening right now, whatever that might be.
Before we go deeper into breath work, which I will want to know a lot about, and the shaking too.
Yeah.
You were in the hospital after your car accident, and they told you we're never going to walk again. You're clearly walking again.
Yes.
So we all know that this was not happening. How did you get from that diagnosis to now walking again? Mentally too, and physically.
I think innately I'm a pretty optimistic person, so I think that helped. So I wasn't really going to take that diagnosis, and it wasn't necessarily that you're never going to walk again, but it's like you're never going to be able to walk normal again. Like they didn't think that my leg was going to be the same length. And so it was a lot of work. I think it is mental. It is so mental of just like, well, that's not, I was 19, you know, I'm like, that's not going to be
That's not
my
an option.
story.
Yeah.
And so I was going between a walker and a wheelchair during that time. And so I was able to move with my walker, which was great. Very limiting, very interesting experience to have at 19. I remember that was the first moment I realized why handicap bathroom stalls were higher than other stalls, because I couldn't get up. You know, it's like just things that I'm like, God, I like things were just starting to really make sense to me around different things in life. And when I was when I used a walker at a young age too, people would not make eye contact with me. And then the minute I moved into crutches before another surgery, everyone was like, oh, did you have a trip and fall? You know, it was really just fascinating that even just the tool I was using, how it made other people feel. And you start to just become very aware of that. But I was going to physical therapy consistently, which was great. And that was very helpful. And then they introduced me to Pilates.
Oh.
So I started going to Pilates. I had an incredible, and this was now, my accident was in Minnesota, actually. I finished college, and right after I finished college, I came out to LA while I was still, I'm air quoting, handicapped. And so I came out to LA, and I got a instructor at this rehabilitation center in Hollywood somewhere. And she was just amazing. And she just was so great with me. And I was able to just lie down on this reformer and work out and, or really just press this machine in and out with my legs and try to do it as much as I could equally to kind of just balance my body. I had like really severe atrophy in my right leg, so my legs looked very different. And eventually I was able to remove myself from the walker and start using crutches. And it was just this kind of progression that was so inspiring to both of us. And I was like, I remember thinking like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
But at the time I was a photographer, and I, you know, spent my whole, again, air quoting career, which is like 3 years of my life. I was so young, building this photography career that I was like, I can't just throw all of this away. And I eventually ended up throwing it all away. And I ended up having more issues with my body later in life and came back to Pilates again and was able to really rehabilitate myself through that practice. So that was a big game changer for me. And then I left photography behind, got certified to be a Pilates instructor. And I feel like that was kind of my first step into everything that I'm doing right now, was to teach Pilates.
So timeline-wise, it was early. You were in your early 20s, started walking again. You were living in LA. When did the other trauma happen? And do you want to talk about?
Oh, I'm completely open to talking about it.
What
I'm the hardest thing for me is the timeline. It's so, because at the time too, I was on opioids. So it's all a little blurry. So there was a period where I was on crutches and then walking again, but then I had to have another surgery. So I had a metal rod in my leg from my ankle to my knee and bolts in my ankle and my knee. And if someone like just brushed against my ankle, I'm in my 20s, you know, you're messing around with your friends, whatever, I would throw up. Like the pain was just like, yes, it was just like, ooh. And so I talked to my doctor and I was like, I can't live like this. I can't, you know. And so we decided to remove the metal from my body, which is a very extensive surgery.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went in for surgery again. And then at that time I had to go back into a wheelchair until my bone was strong enough, because it was basically hollow. And so I had to go back into a wheelchair, back into a walker. And then when I was ready, back into crutches. So the next trauma was like right at a very celebratory time of my life where I was off crutches. And I remember I ordered a new outfit because I was going to go out and like just go celebrate and feel young. And then that was when I was raped. And that was actually, it was before the surgery. So I think it was the first time I had gotten off crutches. And I had gone out to a party, and there was another party going on right down the street. And I went into that event, and I was raped there by two different people at a party.
Were you alone at the party?
At that one, yes. Yeah. And my gut did tell me, don't go in there.
Oh,
Oh
no.
my gosh.
And the little people pleaser in me was like, that's awkward. You can't.
Right.
Like, not,
Yeah.
like just be like, oh, no, actually, I don't want to go to this party.
The first thing I learned in jiu-jitsu and working with Cecilina Gracie, which we hopefully talked to at one time, she's a woman empowerment, like jiu-jitsu coach, self-defense. One of the first things is, ladies, trust your gut. And don't ever put anybody else's feelings over your gut feelings. Like if you feel like you need to change the side of the road, or the street, because somebody's coming who makes you feel weird, but we don't do it because we don't want to make that other person feel uncomfortable. Like, see, it's so interesting that you said, and I knew it.
Yeah.
But
my gut, it was like
didn't
right before I
listen.
stepped in, like my body was like, no.
Yeah.
And I didn't listen to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Right.
I would second that notion.
Yes.
For sure.
Right?
For sure. And I've done so much work around that moment. And I definitely want to talk a little bit about that too, because there was so much to unpack that happened in like this little moment of time in my big life, and the attachment that I had around that moment of just how I, believed in that moment that I had no worth, that I was trash, that, the shame, the shame.
The shame is
It's just, yeah.
It's so horrible
Yeah.
that there even is shame.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I was raised Catholic, and it was just even like, the sex and, it being a stranger and being, it's just like all of the stories in my mind and all of the things that I believed in this split second. Like I said, it just created this whole life. And now this is how I'm moving through the world, believing. It's like, it happened, I believed it, and I'm like, okay. So I just, at that moment, it's just like, I just wasn't valuing myself. And I just continued this for so long, and I didn't tell anybody. I didn't talk to anybody about it.
Nobody?
No, not well. And so this is what I remember now as we're kind of talking about this. I had gone, so this happened after I got off my crutches, and then and bought my new outfit. And I pretty shortly after went in for the second surgery. And I remember coming out of surgery, and the doctor's sitting there with his mask, and there's two nurses behind him, and I can just see it right now. And they all have masks on, and they're just looking at me, and there's bright lights in my face. And my doctor grabbed my hand, and he said, during surgery, and when I was stitching up your incisions, our blood crossed. I pricked my finger, and he's like, is there any chance that you have an STD? And I just sat there, and I remember just like tears running down, because I was like, I'm going to have to tell, and I just looked at him, and I'm like, it is possible. I haven't been checked, and I was raped. And it was the first time that it came out of my mouth. And he didn't flinch. He just said, okay, we'll get tested. And I just remember looking at the nurses and their eyes were filled with tears. And that was the first time I said it out loud. And I still didn't talk about it with anyone it was easier to tell these strangers who just took a rod out of my leg than people in my family or even my friends. And, that was just my own way of not dealing with it and not saying it out loud. And then I got in a relationship and recognized that I was going to need to, have this conversation.
Yeah.
And then it started to make it a little easier to talk about. And thankfully, that man that I told is still in my life. We have been married for, I don't know, since 2018. So we've been together for 20 some years now. And he was just the person who needed to come into my life at that time. He's always been very supportive. But it was really about when I felt like I was ready, I found a course called Yoga, Sex, and Death. And this was
Okay.
This was being taught by my yoga instructor and actually a woman that I worked with. I taught Pilates. That's a new exercise that you don't know about yet, but we'll make sure you stay informed.
I want to try that.
No. I was teaching Pilates at her studio, and it was a course in intimacy and really connecting with your body and getting back into your body. And
Intimacy with yourself, or was it for couples?
No, it was for
okay.
yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like being able to see all parts of yourself. And I was like, oh man, like as much as I didn't want to, I was like, this is
you
it.
didn't want to look in the mirror.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I did that course for 5 years in a row. And I ended up getting certified in the teachings of this. And this is where I learned shaking meditation and all these different things. And it just came into my life at the time when I needed it. And I had to say yes. I had to say yes for myself. And all of the things in my body that were screaming no, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was recognizing was coming from just a place of fear.
So what is it? What did you do?
So yes, it was.
And what's the
yes.
death part?
Yeah.
What's the what?
What's the death part?
Letting go. Because it's all little deaths. Every breath, every exhale, we're letting something go. So the yoga part was hatha yoga, really focusing on our polarities of feminine and masculine and where we have distortions and our beliefs about women, our beliefs about men. And when we believe all men are trash and just want us for our bodies and don't care about my mind, whatever our stories are, because we all have them, we get to question them. Because when we believe something so greatly, our ego wants to prove ourselves right. So we're going to keep finding those men that treat me that way until we decide that we want to believe something different. So we look at that. The sex part is dealing with sexual shadows, our own, just shadows in general. These things that we don't want to bring to the surface. And these practices are about accepting and loving all of you, all of the things, not just this high version of ourselves that we want to believe. Like, this is this idealized version. This is the only version of me I want to exist. And if someone questions that, I'm going to defend myself to the end, And instead of being like, your girlfriend's like, you're being a bitch right now. And I can be like, yeah, I see that too, And then you can really listen to somebody, take a breath, and you really get to know each other. And you get to meet yourself that your friend is meeting at that time. And then the death part of it is a practice called Yoga Nidra, which is one of the best ways to do yoga. You just lie down and someone guides you. It's a meditation. Yeah, it is deep relaxation. But in Tibet, this practice is actually a practice in death. So they've studied death for thousands of years. And it's the process of how the body kind of breaks down and what happens in the process. And their belief is if you practice it, it's not so scary.
Oh, interesting.
In the sense of like, oh, this is what's going to happen next. This is what's going to happen next. And we don't know what happens. So why imagine that it's awful? Like maybe you just take your last breath and it's like a beautiful thing. We don't know. So the yoga nidras are just these kind of practices of relaxation and relaxing the body and focusing on every part of the body and just being really present. And it's really beautiful. And a lot of just questioning beliefs and questioning, like sitting with these moments in our lives that were really hard and these identities that you got from them, and then break them down in a state of meditation where you're meditating on your heart. You're not answering it with your ego or your mind, if that makes sense. It's like really coming into your heart and just being like, well, I believed this in this moment, but is it actually true? And then it's just this process of unlearning and just being like, actually, that woman in that moment is not who I am. It's something that happened, and I can let go of that identity. But I had to feel it first. I had to feel it. I had to look at it. And I had to be brave enough to question it. And then I could let it go and just realize, like, this isn't me. I'm actually something very different from this. And it releases the power of that moment. And that felt really empowering for me.
What if you don't really know where it's coming from? What if there's not one moment that you can say, this happens and then everything changed or something? Like, what if you just... yeah, if you don't really
You just
know.
kind of feel a heaviness.
You are kind of like anxious and depressed, but it's like
Same.
you can still work through it.
It's an incredible question of just, I can't pinpoint a moment in time where I'm like, oh, this is why I'm so heavy. And I'm not going to say these two traumas or why I've like, had
No, but
anxiety.
those are big events
Well,
that
yes, big events.
Yeah, that you can definitely say, like, I need to work through those.
Yes,
If I don't,
and it's a good place
it's gonna
to
come
start.
back and haunt me.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's a good place to start.
Yeah.
And I think like for me, it's all just kind of energy. Are you familiar with the chakric system?
Yes and no.
Yeah, I mean,
yes, I know of it. I know about it. I
Yeah.
could not explain to you exactly.
It's these
I know
little,
it's
these
in line
energetic,
and out of line.
yeah,
and,
there's
yeah.
these energetic centers where, I've studied it's like 5 plus 7 chakras. You can talk to a million different people and they've got all of these different ideas of chakras and that they're all over our body. They're in our fingertips. It's just how energy flows through our body. So energy, just like what we read in The Body Keeps the Score, it gets stuck. And when you experience things in life, and it's not just big T traumas, it's little T traumas where, I mean, the smallest thing can happen and you can take it on as an identity and then get stuck. And you could have a breakup and you put a wall up for the rest of your life. It's just energy gets stuck in your body. So there's all of these ways, to move energy and to change old patterns, because these patterns and these feelings that we experience are just a chemical addiction. It's like something happens, I need to feel this way. Like something happens, it makes me feel this way. We'll question it. Why? And I have these like little red flag words like, well, I need it to be this way or it should be this way. those words, it's like if I hear myself saying that, I'm like, okay, honey, hold on a second. It's not how it is. And this is where this idea of a practitioner of being comes in, because it's like, I want this situation to be different. I want it to feel different in my body, but it's not. So instead of just like being like, oh, I'm okay. Like, obviously this isn't the way I want it to be, but I can, feel it. Like, we are all so much more resistant. That's not the word I want to say.
Resilient.
We are so much more resilient than we think we are. And we're able to like work through so much. I mean, just look at your lives and things that occur that you think in the moment, I can't get through this. Like, how am I supposed to get past this? And you do. And there may be parts of it that stay with you and kind of, keep coming up in stories. And that's why I believe these practices are so important, because it's going to keep coming up until you work through it. That's been my experience, Like, I'm going to keep doubting myself until I prove myself that I can do better, or that I can choose a different path. And that, these old stories, like I have told myself this story and it comes up all the time in my mind. So some people are unaware that we have a ongoing narrative, okay, in our mind. I was very unaware of this constant chit chat in my mind, and then just believing it. And I noticed a ongoing narrative for me was that I can't learn new things. Like, someone would bring something to me and I'm like, I can't do that. And I'd almost make a joke about it. And then I was like, this story is really holding me back from a lot in my life and pushing myself outside my comfort zone. So when I noticed that narrative pop up, I was like, okay, this is what you're going to do. And it was even like reading a book where I was like, oh, I'm not going to understand this old story of like, a story from childhood that I wasn't a good learner. I was diagnosed with this. I wasn't diagnosed. My teachers said I was dyslexic. It was the 80s. So let me clarify that. It's a very different time now. And I just learned a different way, but they didn't know how to teach people that had different learning disabilities like they know how to do now. And so I just carried this story with me. And it's the reason why I didn't go to a 4-year college. It's the reason why, I don't like reading. I'm like, I need to learn from experience. And I think a lot of there is some truth to that. But I recognize like, oh, I can read a book like The Body Keeps the Score and it can change my life. And it was like, that's also true, And then just noticing the narratives that we're choosing to believe. And in my experience, it's just because I was afraid. I was afraid to go do these bigger, bolder things because I didn't want to fail. And now in my 40s, I'm like, I'm going to choose something different. And I'm going to choose things that scare me. I would have never done this before. Never. And so thank you for the opportunity for me to be outside of my comfort zone.
But this labeling is interesting. I hear more and more about it, that it's so dangerous for us to label ourselves with anything, with even what you said earlier. And I heard that somewhere else too, that you should never say about yourself, oh, I'm depressed or I'm anxious. I think, no, you're not like I am this and this. No. You're feeling this in the moment, like right in this moment, this makes me feel anxious.
It doesn't define you.
Yes, exactly. And we need to be so careful to do this with our children too, because we do this so much with kids when we say like, oh yeah, she's shy. Bam, label on. And they don't even notice what's happening with them. They just have, okay, I'm shy in them and don't even know maybe where it's coming from, but might carry that for the rest of their lives, that they're shy. Or she's not, it's always difficult for her to do these math homeworks. Like, okay, so I'm not good at math. And that's what's sticking.
Absolutely.
Instead, I think you're more supposed to say, we're having a shy moment here right now. It's okay. Something like that.
Yeah.
Or this math homework is a little tricky, challenging, but you remember how you conquered it yesterday? Like,
Yes.
and rerouting these labels,
Yeah.
like especially these negative labels. We can put positive labels on, and I like that you're strong and that you're, I don't know, courageous and try new things and stuff. Like, give us thousands of those, but with these negative labels, we have to be very careful.
Yeah. And they pop up in my mind constantly.
Oh, and mine too.
And then
I'm
I'm like,
lazy, yeah.
I notice, I say it in my mind, and then I just reframe it. I'm like, actually, I am this, I am this, I am this. And it's a good practice, and it's a good practice of awareness and just showing, like, just, and how you show up for yourself.
Yeah. It's this thing that I always say why I'm not reading, right? Because I always feel like when I read, and then I put the book to the side, and then I'm tired for a week, so I don't read again. And then I pick it up again, and then I don't remember what I read.
And then you have to go back.
And then I have to go back and like read it again. Like, are
Constantly
you
playing catch up.
kidding me? I said
Maybe
the other
you're
day.
reading the wrong book.
Maybe that's a reason too. But also with this in my mind, I don't even start reading a book anymore because I have this so ingrained in my mind that I'm not capable of reading a book because I will forget it anyway.
Yeah.
And then it's going to be a struggle, and then it's not going to be fun. So, you know, all this like, and then that, and
The
that, and that,
story.
and that. So let's not even start it.
Yeah.
Instead of, maybe the next book's going to be interesting and you're not going to forget what happened. Maybe it was the problem of the freaking book you were reading.
And maybe you're just going to enjoy sitting with a book.
Yeah. Because sometimes I think in my life I found 3 books or so that I really liked. Man, I loved reading.
Yeah.
And
So
I
you
love.
do like reading.
Yes, that's the weird thing. I have the
That's the
experience that
realization.
I love reading when I read the right book.
Just got to find the right book.
It's just, yeah.
I love what you said about big T trauma and little T trauma, because I think we do get hung up on looking at ourselves and kind of gaslighting ourselves into thinking, well, I didn't go through a traumatic event, so why am I feeling down or
And
a
then that
certain
just makes
way?
your feelings even heavier.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because now you're judging your feelings.
I don't have a right to
Right?
be depressed.
Yes.
Like nothing
Yeah.
really happened to me. I'm not, yeah.
And
But we all have things. We all have trauma.
well, and I remember when I learned the definition of trauma. Do you know the definition
No,
of trauma?
what I just want to say, what is
So
the
I'm probably
definition of
going to completely destroy it. But this was what I took from it. That the definition of trauma is not the moment it happens, it's your response or reaction to the moment. So the way I like to think about it is like, let's say someone comes up and just punches you in the face. And you're like, what did I do? I must be an awful person that someone would punch me in the face and, make this whole like, oh God, and have this like traumatic experience. Or instead you're like, oh, did your fist slip and hit my face? It's completely ludicrous, but it's like just noticing, like if someone slips and hits you, you don't get. But if you think someone's like attacking you and that's your relationship to it. And I really sat with this because I have had another traumatic experience that didn't really affect me. And I think that this is fascinating. And I've looked back at this when I've sat with different experiences. But I was living in Echo Park and it was not the best neighborhood. There was a lot of gang affiliation. I decided to befriend them because they were right in front of my home. So I would go out there with them and I
Like
learned,
gang
yes,
members? Okay.
yes. And I learned their names. We'd have conversations. And there was one of the guys told me to watch out for this guy that was in the gang because they didn't really know him very well. And I said, okay. So I was walking up my stairs a couple days later and he's just sitting on the stairs.
The one they told you to watch out for.
Yeah. Now, he was staying with his grandmother who lived right below me.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so we were sharing
Okay.
space.
I thought
it's not like
you-
just
okay.
random. No,
Yeah.
he's sitting there. And I shared a moment with him that was pretty intimate. I tend to do this with people. And And so I went back up into my apartment, and this apartment was so romantic, and it's why I rented it, even though I knew the neighborhood wasn't great, but it had these windows that you opened outward, and it was just all windows. You could see the Hollywood sign. It was just a beautiful little apartment. And at the time, I didn't have a lot of money. I was living with my boyfriend. We didn't even have a couch. We somehow had a big screen TV, but no couch. And I'm living in this apartment, and I remember that night I was watching The Butterfly Effect. Wow, that just came out of nowhere. And I'm laying down on the floor watching this movie, and I passed out at some point. And I was wearing little like boy shorts and a little tank top. And when I woke up, he was standing over me in
The
my
guy.
apartment. Yeah, the one they told me to watch out for. He's standing over me. And I had my first reaction was like what they tell you if like you're around a bear. I'm like, I'm just gonna curl up into a little ball and he'll just leave me alone. And I started to just make myself really small, you know? And he just stood there. And I was like, okay, maybe that's not gonna work.
Not working.
What now? And I was staying very present. And I remember what one of the gentlemen that I'd become friends with told me about their community, that it was all about family and unity, and that, you know, a lot of them didn't want this life, but they felt like it was the only choice for them, and that, you know, really it's become a brotherhood. It's like, you know, one of their best friends gets shot, and then they, you know, it's like just the challenge of that, and that they've really just become each other's family. And so I looked at him and I knew his name because he had told me his name. So I kept saying his name over and over. And before I started talking to him, he did show me that he had a gun. He never pointed it at me, but he showed me that it was in his pocket. And I remember I just was like, okay. And I kept saying his name over and over, and I was very present. And I said, I know this person, and I know this person. I know this person. They're not going to want you in here. Like, I'm friends with all of you guys. Like, this isn't okay. You need to get out of here. And when I started talking to him directly, he shoved the gun back into his pocket. And I remember just looking at his eyes, and he was really high. They were just bouncing in his eye socket. And he just started saying, like, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. I'm here putting this stuff back. And I was like, okay, this is going in, I think, a pretty good direction. And he put my purse down. He was holding my purse and my cell phone. And he put all my stuff down. And I said, okay. And he started saying that it was this other person. And I was like, okay. I go, well, I just need you to leave. And he went out the window. He was right by the front door, but he went out the window he had come in through. So I was like, okay, obviously, I mean, he's just doing what he needs to do to get out of here at this point. But he stood outside my window while I called my boyfriend because I was really scared. And I was like, you know, what am I supposed to do? And I was like, and he was like, call the police. And I was really scared. And then I was talking about calling the police and recognized that he was still outside the window. And he was telling me, you can't call the police. Like, there's a warrant for my arrest. You can't call the police. So I hung up with my boyfriend. And I ended up having a conversation with him outside my window for like an hour about the first time someone came in to his home. And it was actually a Korean gang in that neighborhood when he was like 8 years old, and he was supposed to be protecting his siblings. And I'm now sitting there having this conversation of like him sharing his experience of what he just kind of put me through. And it was just crazy and like fascinating and scary and like all of these things. But I was so present.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't attach to this crazy story. And so I feel like it wasn't something I needed to work through, if that makes sense. Where when I look at other things in my life, like what made it painful was the attachment to what I thought it said about me and what it meant about me. I just stayed really present. And it was like, this is what's happening. How can I get out of this? I wasn't like making it like, this person hates me. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Well,
you
I
can get
think,
an email
yeah.
from somebody that has a tone, okay?
Yeah.
And it's like, ugh, like it can like ruin your whole day.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how to respond to this. They're upset with me and all of these things. And it's an email. That can be just as traumatic. If you're making it, like, what story
Yeah. What's
are
the
you
narrative?
attaching to it? What's the narrative? And usually it's something that you feel comfortable feeling. It's like, oh, this is a safe space for me. I feel comfortable when someone's trying to, boss me around or whatever. And then I'm going to take on a mask of like, we all wear these different masks of like the self-righteous one or the, the powerful one or, what was my favorite one forever? The victim.
Yeah.
Other masks like the people pleaser. We all do certain things in relationship with people because it's what feels most comfortable to us. And
Most known.
yes,
Right?
and all okay.
Yeah.
At some time in our lives, like it did protect us, and it had a time to do what it needed to do for us, and it might not be the best way. So it's like,
So-
can you question it? Can you sit with it? Allow yourself to feel whatever that mask is protecting you from, like using your voice.
Yeah, because it is there for a reason. Like
Yeah.
it is good that we're anxious. It
Yes.
is good that we're scared of things. I mean, that keeps
Yes.
us alive.
Yes.
That makes us not running into traffic. I mean, there is all these feelings are there for a reason. They
Absolutely.
just sometimes take over a little too much
Yeah.
and go overboard.
Yeah. It's like, is it holding you back? Is it keeping you, from being this, beautiful, unique version of yourself that is you? I have dampened myself for 80% of my life because I was just fearful of everything, of making someone feel uncomfortable, of upsetting somebody, of someone disappointing someone. I mean, just all of the things. And now I disappoint my friends all the time. And we have difficult conversations around it. And then it feels amazing. I get to see them. I get to see who they meet. They get to see me. They get to see that I'm pushing myself in a different direction. I don't have as much space for them that maybe I did before, but understand it's because I'm trying something new in my life. And then they can congratulate me instead of be mad at me because we get to have this in-depth conversation that's difficult to have. But both people need to be willing also.
I mean, so challenging to allow yourself to disappoint somebody is like the worst thing nobody ever wants to do that.
It seemed like death to me.
Yeah.
Like
You
hearing
always,
my
like,
mom
yeah.
say, "Oh, I could cry right now." Hearing my mom say, like, "I'm disappointed in you." Like, oh, like, yeah. And tell me about that. Like, Mom, like, tell me about your disappointment. Like, how did I let you down?
Yeah.
And let her see that, like, you're just trying your best,
And her
And
disappointment is her disappointment. It's not
Yes.
yours to carry in a
No.
backpack.
It
no.
also might have nothing to do with you. It's the perception
Yeah.
that she had of a specific situation, and that is actually her problem to have that.
Yeah. Her
Yes.
experience that she can be curious about. Because is it even a problem to
Right.
feel disappointment?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Is
Or
it a
is the situation
problem?
just different than you thought it would
Yes.
be? Yeah. Also an option.
Expectation.
Oh.
Expectation and yeah.
It's very
The
dangerous.
value we put on expectation and the way we expect things to go.
Yeah.
Well, we're all trying to predict
Yeah.
the
'Cause we want to feel
unknown.
control.
Yes.
And we don't have it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
instead of trying to predict, and this is a practice I'm in, okay? This is not something I have mastered, but it's just, can I just be curious in the unknown? And it may turn out way better than I could even predict. Because I don't have a great imagination. So my predictions are pretty safe.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden it's like, wow, it can be so much better. So why limit yourself with your small-minded prediction? You know,
Yeah.
the universe is so much more abundant than we can usually come up with
Fathom.
our minds, you know? So curiosity, that's like my big word right now.
Yeah.
So to round it all up, what is breath work?
Okay. So this ended up being a practice that I started during COVID. I had done breath work before and it was amazing. I mean, I hallucinated. It felt really uncomfortable at times. And the first time I did it, it was Unplugged. Do you remember when that company opened
Yes.
up? Unplugged. It was so cool because it was like a big time where cell phones had kind of just started coming out and everyone was on their cell phones. So the idea is you'd walk into this space and you had to hand over your device.
Yeah.
You'd hand your device over and you'd go into this space and they'd do you. It was meditation. It was all these different
Sound
things.
baths.
Yes, it was really cool. And I didn't do it much after that. And then when COVID happened, a friend of mine told me about the space Open. So I started going to Open and doing breath work at the beach. And I was like, this is huge. This is amazing. Like, this is just moving stuff through me without story. And a lot of the work I was doing before that was a lot of work with the mind, questioning all of my beliefs, sitting with all of my thoughts, and the huge benefit of that. And it's called self-inquiry, which was all part of my yoga, sex, and death practice. Huge breakthroughs with that work. I just was ready to like try something where it was just more in my body because I'm very like, once I got back into my body, I was like, wow, like this is kind of amazing. And so breath work was a way for me to kind of get out of the mind, get out of the story, and just feel into my body and notice where like my breath wasn't going, notice where I was so scared to hold it because it's like just the fear of holding and being uncomfortable when that next breath was going to come. And it just became this practice where I was like, this is it. Like, this is just it for me. And so I started practicing that for a couple years. And then I decided to get a certification as that. Do you notice a pattern? Okay.
Yeah.
So something happens, I find a way to work through it, and then I get certified in it. I got certified in breath work with two really incredible breath coach and facilitators, Ali Maz and George Ramsey. I went through their certification program, and then I left that week after doing like 3 hours of breath work a day, where I'm telling you, it creeps in occasionally, but I left there just without self-doubt. I just didn't have it anymore. And I just recognized it. It wasn't like, I mean, I think it was part of my intention going was just to kind of rediscover this part of me that isn't like all about healing and doing, it was like, I just want to like get back in my body and enjoy my life. And this was it. It was just like my fear that was trapped in my body was just not there anymore. And it was just amazing. I just started noticing. I was just like, this is something I want to do. And instead of questioning it, I would just do it. And it's kind of just how it's been for the last 6 months. And I've been really enjoying the ride.
Yeah.
It's just been a really incredible path. But it's just another modality on moving energy in the body, just like shaking meditation, somatic practices where you just kind of feel into your body. It's bringing mind, body, and spirit into a practice and experiencing all of it.
So what do you teach? Do you teach weekly classes? Do you do workshops? Like what?
I just
Like
finished
you have so many certificates now,
Yeah.
and different. Like how do you
Oh,
combine
Pilates.
them all?
Yes.
Yeah, it started with
See you for
Pilates.
Pilates.
So I still teach Pilates. I teach privates. I teach classes. Always am incorporating breath into Pilates. Pilates and breath. It's like if you're not breathing in Pilates, you're getting 10% of what you can be doing with that practice. It is a very mind-body practice. I feel like we're losing that a little bit. Just like yoga has become very much so about fitness. it is so much about just being in your body and connecting to your body and feeling into these little intrinsic muscles that are supporting your spine. And so I teach it very differently than a lot of people do. And the way I've taught Pilates has changed in a very huge way. And then as far as breath work goes, I do teach it once a week at the Pilates studio, Bossy Pilates in Marina Del Rey. I teach there once a week, but I am moving to a different space. So there's a space also in Marina Del Rey called the Thrive Collective. And this is a whole space of just healers. It is Reiki, acupuncture, breath work, yoga, meditation. It is just like, and massage.
cool.
I've had incredible massages there, and there's constantly wellness events going on. And so whatever you find juicy, you can find
All of it.
Yes.
Oh my God, I want to go to all
Yes,
of it.
Right?
Thrive.
Collective.
It's Thrive Collective. And I think their Instagram is Thrive Health LA. And so I will be teaching there once a week, and I'll also be holding workshops and events there throughout the year. The workshop that I'm going to be doing in July, towards the end of July, is self-inquiry. So I'll be teaching with my partner, Susan Marufo. She is the woman who created Yoga, Sex, and Death. So we now teach together. So she will be combining this practice of belief and questioning your thoughts and how you're attached to these and how you can break them down and kind of unlearn these patterns. And then we go into breath work. So we work with the mind, and then we lie down and we go into a active breath work. So it's a 3-part breath. So it can be, it's work. I'm just going to say that. It's called breath work. So you're pushing past your comfort zone. You go into this state of fight or flight. But you can very quickly calm yourself down by breathing in and out through your nose. And then I will bring you back down to the parasympathetic nervous system, and I do a sound bath afterwards. And most people come out of it feeling really like energized and empowered. And it's
Most
kind
people?
of, yeah. I mean, look, everyone's.
I'm like, of course, right away. I'm not going to be the one who comes out of there more anxious
Well,
than
look
you
at that
guys.
story, Sarah.
I know,
In
right?
one.
I have to do this probably the most.
I think it would be very big for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would, because just like what you're saying is like you're feeling kind of this heaviness in your body. And there's just something, a little stuck in the lower part of you that we just got to kind of move around.
What I always say, or what I frequently say to my therapist, is that it really pisses me off how something else takes over my body. Like I wake up in the morning and nothing is different than it was yesterday, but I feel horrible.
So
I'm
what is that your
depressed,
first
I'm
thought when you wake
anxious.
up?
No, not always, but some days are just horrible, and I feel like I'm not in control of it.
Yeah.
I don't have a saying in it. It just takes over, the anxiety and the depression. And it's just like nothing is worse than it was yesterday, and yesterday I was fine. Like, what the heck is happening? Why is this happening? And that makes me so mad that I don't have control over this. It's just like, who are you just taking over my body? Like, this is my body and this is my feelings. Like, I should be the one saying, like, no, I'm fine, I'm good. It's a good day. Sun's shining, same way, everybody's healthy. Like, what the heck?
Well, what would you say to your daughter if she said like she was waking up feeling that way?
I would let her embrace it.
Yeah, just feel it. Most likely it'll pass.
Don't try to fight it.
Yeah.
Recognize it.
Yeah, it's like, can you just give yourself a little compassion in that moment? And
Yeah,
maybe
no.
not. Yeah. But like, just think about how you give your daughter a hug,
Yeah.
and just like, oh, it's like just so heavy, It's just so heavy.
And that's what we are so like trained, say, in like these like parenting these days, the parenting styles these days that are so different from like our parents and grandparents, are like recognizing all these feelings and letting them be. If she's like, oh, I'm just so sad about it, not saying like, oh, don't be sad.
Yeah.
Just like, yeah, this is sad, right? This feels really sad. And then just be in it and sit in it and have them learn that it's not going to kill you. It's going to pass at some point and it's going to feel better again. But they're all like just moments. Sadness, the same as happiness. Nobody can be happy all the time. It's like the same thing. Those are all moments. And the modern parenting style goes more in that direction. But I think it's so difficult to do it to ourselves.
It is.
And I think too, if you're fighting that feeling, if you wake up in the morning and you feel just terrible and heavy and you're like then going to beat up on yourself for feeling a certain way, you're giving it so much power. Whereas if you, instead of fighting it, just sit there for a few minutes and maybe do a breath exercise and talk yourself through that feeling of heaviness and sadness and everything, then over time you'll maybe develop a different relationship where you're not trying to fight it and you just recognize it's there.
And just be curious about it. Like, what does it feel like? What is the label you're giving it? And what does it feel like in your body? And not judge it.
You always want to know, like, why?
Right.
Why is it there?
Yeah, it's just there. It's just energy. It's just like thoughts coming. Like, I notice I have no control over what comes into my mind. Like things that come into my mind, I'm like, damn, like that's not going to say that one out loud. Okay. It's like motions are kind of the same thing, you know? And I think if we're unaware of what's happening in our mind, and because I feel like a lot of them come together, right? And it's kind of like, what is that saying? Do you hear the tree? If you can't see the tree falling in the forest, or the chicken before the egg? I don't know. I'm confused in my metaphors, but it's like, I don't know what comes first. Does the thought come first? Does the feeling in the body come? Like, you know, I'll feel like when anxiety is moving through me, I notice it in my gut. You know, it's kind of like in my body here. And then I look at my mind and I'm like, well, is there a story of past or future? And there usually is. It's like, I'm like thinking about coming and being on a podcast and I just feel it on my body. And I don't need to give it a story of like, oh, this is fear. It's just energy. It's, you know, like I woke up, I mean, after I did some breath work today, I felt very excited about this, you know, but before that, it was more in a form of like fear and anxiety. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to do what I preach. I laid down. I did 25 minutes of breathing. And I came out of it just being like, oh, fun. I get to just like sit and talk about things I'm passionate about. Like, this is amazing, instead of it being some other story. And so, you know, you're going to have these experiences. They're going to always be there. We're going to feel stress. We're going to feel sadness. And it is the relationship around it. It's like, can I meet it without judgment and just being like, oh, okay, this is here. And I do think that gets easier with practice. You know, you're not going to just wake up in the morning and be like, oh, what am I supposed to do? Reframe. You know, it just doesn't really, you know, and maybe it will work like that for someone, but that hasn't been my experience. And, you know, I've now for 10 years been consistently meditating, finding new practices, moving my body, doing somatic exercises about, you know, being a woman and embodying what I believe being a woman means. I mean, it's been a constant flow of curiosity, you know, and wanting to live a life with more peace, you know, and I just knew that the life I was living in my 30s was not what I wanted my 40s to be. And so it was a decade of me getting to this place of still feeling energy that can be heavy. And I invite it. It's like, what's going on? There's something here that I can work with, you know? And instead of just being like, I'm still feeling this way, because then it's just more abuse on yourself. And, it's practicing that compassion that we seem to very easily have for our friends and our children. And it's like, yeah, why is it such a struggle to give it to ourselves? I know that struggle. And I just am like, okay, I'm going to just keep practicing. And that's just kind of what I keep coming back to, or coming back to the things that I've noticed in my life do bring me the peace and ease. And I think it's why I haven't drank in a year, in a year and a half now, because it just wasn't making me feel good anymore. So I'm going to start choosing the things that are bringing me life and energy and vitality. And because that's how I want to live through my 40s. And we'll see. We will see.
I have that then for my 50s.
There you go.
I would love to invite you to come do breath work.
Oh my God, I will.
Yeah.
I would love to do it.
What's like the
You too.
quickest you could do a breathwork session? Like, can you do it even in your car at a red light?
1 minute. Yes. So, can I share just a couple?
That would be a gift. Seriously.
Okay. So one of my favorites is just imagine it's a super easy way to think about breathing, and it's a 1-to-1 breath. So this is great to do just in the middle of the day. If you're noticing that you're feeling overwhelmed, you're ruminating on
This happens
something.
a lot.
Yes. Okay. So I usually like to bring like my hands to like my heart and my belly. Notice how this chair just very perfectly.
It's perfect for
My
you.
elbows are just sitting right in place, okay? But also just grounding on your thighs is also just a really nice place. Just allow your eyes to close. You're going to take a breath in through your nose. Take in another sip. And then one time, just open your mouth and let out a sigh. Now, close your lips. Breathe in through your nose for a count of 5, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 4, 3, 2, 1. Try to breathe into your belly. 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 4, 3, 2, 1. Relax the shoulders. In, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then just let your breath come to its natural state. And gently just allow your eyes to blink open and just see how just you feel in your body, the state of the mind.
I just want to stay asleep.
I mean, like, my arms feel
calmer.
gooey.
It's so much calmer already.
Yes. So, like, if I'm feeling kind of like revved up and I want to go into a space a little bit more grounded, I'll just go there. Yeah. And so that's a 1-to-1 breath. And it's actually how we're supposed to breathe daily. So the perfect daily breath it's LSD. It's a good way to remember it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You're actually going to breathe less, because throughout the day, when we're kind of high functioning, we're a little bit in fight or flight all day. It's like we're breathing really quick, almost hyperventilating, and we're not taking full breaths. And so when you ask someone to take a deep breath, which I ask people a lot, I see a lot of wild things, right? It's like, it's like chest and we've all kind of forgot how to breathe into the belly. So we want to breathe deep and low, and we want to breathe less. So what I mean by that is, like, you're not going to take these, 100% breaths, but you're going to breathe like 70% in, and then allow that breath to empty. And you want it to be equal parts inhale, exhale. Now, if you've been breathing short all day, start with 3 to 3. Maybe increase to 4 to 4, or 3 to 3, then to 5 to 5. Like, when I used to have panic attacks, I mean, there's no way I could be having a panic attack and try to start going into that breath. But can you start to just equal out the inhale and the exhale? just start to kind of expand the breath and slow it down. You just want to be breathing less, slow, and deep. So think that you're kind of filling your lungs about 70%, and then you're emptying the lungs. And then just do that you can tell, that was probably less than a minute. But that first little sigh we started with is a great way to reset the nervous system too.
So good.
It's just a deep breath in, sip, and then make a sound. Like let something go. And then you can just kind of come into this state of breath where you're breathing a little less, a little deeper, and a little slow. It's a good one to come to.
I'm going to do that at the red light next time.
Yes. A little, what is that?
Don't close your eyes though on a red light and do
Yeah, you don't have to have your eyes closed.
Yeah.
But even just bringing your attention to your breath throughout the day. Like if you're starting to feel overwhelmed, it's like, oh, how am I breathing? And it's really like the more I'm learning about breath, it's like, why are we not taught this? This is wellness. If you're just eating healthy and working out and doing all just eating healthy, that's a huge thing to do. Okay. It's
also not taught that.
Bold choice. If you, are eating healthy, working out and doing all of these things, but you're not breathing right, it's just, I have this, I don't think it's just me that believes this, but that autoimmune comes from trauma. Like, I feel like we haven't, I think they're making connections in this, but when you're holding onto all of this and you're not breathing right, it's like our cells aren't getting what they need, to be healthy.
The one with the 2-week sinus infection over here.
I was diagnosed with cervical cancer. I've had skin cancer. It's like I just feel like my cells haven't been able to get the nutrients and the oxygen and everything because of, not breathing right, of just being in a state of panic and fight or flight for most of my life. And then it's like, I want to choose something different. And when I breathe, I can just feel the energy flowing in my body differently. And it's a really powerful thing. And if you learn 3 practices, it's free, my loves. This is just available to you. So, just give it some time, learn how to breathe and see what you notice. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's going to cure you of everything in your life, but just notice what it feels like, be curious. Thank you. Thank you guys so much for
Thank you
just having
so much.
space to talk about this stuff. And, women, we are so strong, we're so powerful, and we're so resilient. And it's like, just notice those moments, like that's what's holding you back. And maybe you can change some patterns just out of curiosity. Thank you. You're so welcome. You're welcome. Thank you guys so much.
Bye, friends.
Bye.
Bye.